Hi guys, this is jsnon.com and I'm here with a review of the Realme 9 Pro Plus. So it's a device that was launched over the past month or so, and it stands out to the fact that it comes with a pretty affordable price tag around $400, and in spite of that it offers some pretty appealing features, like for example a main Sony sensor with a 50 megapixel resolution and optical image stabilization. It also comes with an AMOLED screen, that sweet spot, pretty small diagonal to make it easy to wield, and also it brings the Dimensity 920 CPU, which is actually pretty solid as far as the performance is concerned. Now, this is also our very first contact with the Realme UI 3.0, and I think it's time to start the review of the Realme 9 Pro Plus. We have here the black version, not the chameleon one. You probably know that Realme launched one which changes color in the sunlight. Now, as far as the design is concerned, the phone is pretty well built, but it's pretty much a magnet for dust and prints, particularly in this camera area here. No matter how much I clean it, it's a magnet for that. If you're looking for the chameleon version, it changes colors from blue to red or something like that with a special light shift design. Now we have here once again the midnight black version. It catches the light with some interesting arcs, as you can see for yourself, and we also have a bundled case to avoid the smudging, which is kind of inevitable nowadays. One thing that I can mention here is that the power button feels a bit too flat to be comfy, and if you want to find it in the dark or something, you really have to feel around for it properly. Now, aside from that, I would say that the phone is pretty easy to wield. I mean, it's grippy and all on account of the rather flat frame you can see here. It's 7.99 millimeters in thickness and weighs just slightly below 119 grams. Once again, 190 grams, not 19. And it's got a plastic protection applied on the screen from the factory, and the bezels here are quite symmetrical except for the chin, which is a bit bigger. If you're wondering about the materials, well, here we have glass, and it's quite good looking glass, and at the front side glass as well with the plastic protection, and in between them there's a frame which is made of metal and it's quite solid, so solid build all around. Now I think it's time to discuss the screen, and what we're dealing with here is a 6.43 inch AMOLED panel, the diagonal, which has also been used on the Realme GT last year, and that one was a bit of a hit, if you ask me, when it comes to gaming and also video watching. Now, 6.43 inches Super AMOLED panel, and obviously the resolution is Full HD+. We also have a 90 Hz refresh rate and a 20:9 aspect. It's quite satisfying when it comes to the colors. They're pretty vibrant. It has some wide view angles, as you can see for yourselves, and the contrast is spot on. Also, I would say we get a rather bright panel here. Too bad that the regular version, the non-plus one, actually gets a higher refresh rate than this one. Okay, we also did a bunch of measurements, and let's see what came out. But first and foremost, pixel arrangement is of the pentile matrix variety, and the lux meter showed the value of 578 lux units. This means that it's the equal of the Motorola Edge 20 Lite. It's 1 lux above the Realme GT Neo 2, and it beats even several Galaxy S21 phones and the Huawei Nova 9. Now, at the same time, I would also mention that the handset is below a few other phones out there. Let's see them here in our hierarchy. Okay, so it's below the Oppo Reno 6, just slightly. It's also below the Oppo Reno 4 Lite, the Poco F3, and the Xiaomi 11T Pro, just one example, but still a pretty bright panel here. Now, if you also want to play around with some settings for the screen, you go here, we got display and brightness, we got auto brightness, you got the screen color modes, can be set to vivid, natural, or pro mode, have the screen color temperature, and also eye comfort and video color enhancer, believe it or not. Now, we're done with the screen, we're totally satisfied by it, and we go further into the phone where we find the CPU, the MediaTek Dimensity 925G. It's a 6nm CPU, this one, and at the same time we also get 6 gigs of RAM, as you can see here, and also 128 gigabytes of storage. There's no micro SD card slot, sadly, and well, I think it's also time to discuss the performance. I'm happy to inform you there is no overheating here, and I'm also happy to inform you that it runs all of the games you can imagine in a pretty fine manner without any sort of lag, problems or things like that. Now, as I mentioned before, we did some benchmarks and let's see how those panned out. So we go here, we start off with the typical Antutu 8. You can see the score here, just above the Huawei Mate XS and the Galaxy S10 Plus. Now, be advised, the same CPU is found on the Poco X4 and the Redmi Note 11 Pro Plus, so it's quite a familiar experience. With the result in Antutu, we surpassed the Galaxy A52 5G and the Oppo Reno 6. At the same time, we're below the Huawei Mate 30 Pro and Huawei Nova 9 and Motorola Edge 20. This is Antutu. We go further to Geekbench 5 in the multi-core subtest with a pretty decent score. In this test here, we even surpassed Huawei P40 Lite 5G, and Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite also surpassed the OnePlus Nord. Just slightly above us are the OnePlus Nord 2 and the Redmi K20 Pro, as you can see here, OnePlus Nord 2, and also the Galaxy S10 Lite and Motorola Edge 20. This one is actually not as impressive as the previous one. The most relevant for gamers is 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, which once again has us beating the Huawei P40 Lite 5G, and it also beats the iPhone SE 2020, just so you know, but it's below the Huawei Nova 9 and the iPhone 11. Now, the fact that we actually surpassed Galaxy A52 5G is the biggest achievement we had here. There were no large increases in temperature, so if you see here, temperature in benchmarks, we have 33 degrees Celsius, so definitely no overheating. Now it's time to discuss the battery. We have a 4500 mAh unit which charges at 60 watts, and let's see how it did in our tests. First and foremost, we have the video playback test. You can see it here. It delivered 21 hours and 31 minutes. It's actually pretty impressive. We've seen our fair share of impressive phones in this area, but this one actually delivers quite a bit. We're actually familiar with the entire Realme series from the past year. The Realme 8 was fantastic in battery life. Once again, Realme 9 Pro Plus delivers 21 hours and 31 minutes of video playback, which is actually top 15 all time on the 14th spot, and it surpasses phones like the Realme 8 5G, Vivo V21 5G, and the Realme GT2 Pro. Actually not a bad company to be in, and other models which surpassed us are high profile ones: Vivo X60 Pro, OnePlus 8, OnePlus 8T, and Realme 8i, all of them solid. Continuous usage is also impressive, 14 hours and 16 minutes. We surpassed the Xiaomi Mi 10T and a few other top-notch handsets. Now, with this result here, we actually achieved the result which is above the Oppo Reno 5 Lite, above the Poco X3 Pro, but below the OnePlus Nord 2, Realme 8 5G, or the Poco F3, as you can see here in this top. The charge is a bit slower than expected. I somehow imagined we would crack the 30-minute barrier. We're at 44 minutes, and after 50 minutes of charge we're at 44%. Actually not that bad. Now, when it comes to the speakers, let's see what we have here. Okay, so we're getting a stereo experience. We got the speaker at the bottom here. We have the audio jack, and the top speaker is actually here in the earpiece. We should also have some tweaks for the musical experience, so sound and vibration, Dolby Atmos, you can activate it, and you have some profiles. There are actually two types of profiles: environment ones and scenario ones. In the environment you have indoor, on the go, commute or flight, and in scenario you have smart, movie, gaming and music. Okay, I think it's time to listen to some tunes and put the speakers to work. Okay, so some pretty high-pitched sounds here, but my impressions are the following. The voice is resounding. I actually listened to some other tunes with a solid voice. I actually enjoy the voice in podcast as well. The high notes are very pronounced, you can definitely hear them. The bass is not as impressive as the high notes. There's no distortion and you will not cover the speakers. The games are pretty deafening, if you ask me. you should better keep the volume at 70% for the ideal experience in games. Now let's see something else here. The volume power, we measured it. At the bottom 87.3 decibels, at the top 76.3 decibels with our typical acoustic test. Now what we have here, well, actually did a comparison between this one and those ones. You should also see the difference between the speakers, so stereophony isn't exactly present here. It's definitely more powerful, the bottom speaker, than the top speaker. With this value we actually surpassed the Xiaomi Mi 11 Lite 5G and the Realme 8 Pro, but we stayed below the Huawei Nova 9 and the Redmi Note 11. When it comes to gaming, I'm not very impressed by the 97.1 decibels, but in real life it feels a bit higher. Okay, so it's far from the records, but at least it beats Galaxy A72, Poco F3 and even Galaxy A52s 5G. Stays below the Vivo V21, Poco X3 and the Moto G50. It feels much stronger in real life. Now, I think it's time to discuss the cameras. The phone seems to keep the front camera, the 16 megapixel camera of the Realme 8 Pro, but with an improved aperture. It films in Full HD, in this case the selfie camera. If you go to the back side, we have a triple camera setup, and it's written here that optical image stabilization is part of the package. Now, the main sensor is a 50 megapixel one. It's the same one found on the Realme GT2, Huawei Nova 9 and OnePlus 9 RT. So it's quite impressive. There's a secondary 8 megapixel camera, obviously ultra wide, and finally 2 megapixel macro camera here, this little fellow with 4 centimeter capture. There's an LED flash and 4K 30 frames per second video capture. There's slow motion, there's street photography, there are filters here, there's AI scene enhancement, there's an expert mode, movie mode, dual view video, and well, that's pretty much it. I don't know if I mentioned night mode, but it's definitely available here. Now let's check out the photo gallery. So this is the gallery of shots I've taken using this Realme handset. I have to say it was a spring day, very sunny, lots of light, main camera shot and ultra wide camera shot. I would say that the ultra wide camera doesn't change the colors very much from the main camera. This is a zoom test. As you can see here, things are just okay for digital zoom. At about 3x we're happy, afterwards there's noise. I'll admit that the main camera is pretty ambitious. Even with the sun in front it delivers some pretty decent results, and this is the ultra wide camera, also not bad. What I enjoyed here is that the colors are pretty well calibrated, with the exception maybe of the vegetation, especially in the green parts, which felt a bit more exposed than they should be. So this is the vegetation I'm talking about. The greens are a bit too lit up compared to real expectations. The HDR keeps the sky correct in color calibration, so that's fine, a pretty efficient HDR. And we also have a bokeh applied to this statue here in a pretty correct manner. As you can see, it's blurring the background without any sort of fails. Okay, this is where we got really close for close-ups and macros, and I would say that we delivered in spite of having those pretty noisy macro shots. Lovely yellow hue here, main camera shot. This is actually the main camera shot, and I think this is the ultra wide camera shot. The simple fact that I cannot tell them apart shows that the colors are kept in check pretty well. Okay, so textures are also fine here, and speaking of which, these are the selfies I've taken with the handset. Not bad, to be honest. The texture of the skin, of the hair and the beard, they're pretty well represented. And even though this frame is pretty lit up, the light falls properly on my face. This is a bokeh, which cuts my face pretty well from the background. And well, that's that. We have a bunch of blues and reds here in the following frames, which are well represented digitally, even when we zoom in, which is kind of shocking for digital zoom. Okay, and then a bunch of other colors here. Notice the vegetation, which this time is pretty well rendered without the overexposure, and some lovely reds. That's something I noticed throughout the gallery, the quality of the red hues which we captured again and again and again. And also the blues are looking pretty nice. Okay, we got up close again with this locket here. A regular close-up, impressive, and then we got into a macro, also impressive. So far so good. a bunch of other frames, this time with the sun being hidden by some of the trees, a bit more shade if you want to. Nice focus, nice color calibration, and nice texture again. And also lovely details. You can actually zoom in a lot onto these shots. You'll be treated to a high level of detail. And finally, one last collection of selfies. Well, the face is a bit too wide for my taste, maybe something out of the playbook of a Galaxy A from 2 years ago. And here I tried out all the urban street photo effects which you have available. You know, there's a special street mode, and these are the effects you'll be applying just in case you're curious. These are the street filters. Overall, the selfies feel once again below the Galaxy A series, or maybe on par with the Galaxy A from 2 years ago. But aside from that, the main camera delivers. The macro captures okay, and the ultra-wide camera isn't half as bad as you think simply by seeing its resolution. And these effects are nice if you really want to apply some extra flair to your shots. Those were daytime captures. Let's switch to the nighttime now. Okay, so there's definitely a yellowish hue which appears here, which is to be expected. There's a lot of yellow light which happens. This is a regular shot where you cannot see this panel here because it's too bright, but if you trigger the night mode, you can actually start to see it better, even though not in its entirety. As I said, this is not one of the best cameras out there when it comes to low light capture, except for when you turn on the night mode and things come to life. I noticed this beautiful church here, which was lacking a bit in detail and definition. Once again, a night mode saves it. That's the whole definition. I was actually shocked by the brightness of the screen when I took these selfies using the screen as a flash, and the results are quite fine, believe it or not. I may have criticized the camera a bit in the daytime, but during the nighttime it's fine. I even caught the moon and some stars. There's also a starry mode. This is actually a regular shot, and this is the night mode shot, shining bright even compared to a few flagships out there. Of course, you can forget about the ultra wide at night. It's the weak spot of any phone basically I've ever tested over the past year. Okay, some more urban sceneries in darker areas. Ultra wide is a bit of a letdown again. However, this camera seems to be able to handle strong street light sources, and let's see some more here. It doesn't overblow them, which is a bit of a compliment, and if there's some overblowing here, you can solve it with the night mode, which makes everything more uniform in, I would say, lighting and other such things. Okay, so we're done with the night mode. This is the star of the low light capture. If you don't have it and it's really dark, you won't be that impressed by the result. But if it's pretty bright outside, you should be able to pull off some nice looking shots. Okay, so now let's talk about the videos. We have this one here, which involves panning and quite a bit of noise coming from the wind, so the microphones cannot handle the wind pretty well. I would say the colors are fine, details are a bit on the soft side. And afterwards, we also have this stabilization video. This is a 4K stabilization clip. It may look fine on this small screen, but it's actually not that impressive. I expected a tad better, if I'm being honest. You can see some trepidation in the image and some shakiness, even on a flat ground. Fine clarity though, in general. This is the dual video mode, which I'm shooting with the main camera and the front camera at the same time. A bit of overexposure, particularly since we're filming in full HD with both cams. Once again, a pretty lit scenario. I would also have to say that the zoom is decent for this level. Bright reds, by the way. Okay, even more colors here. The exposure needs to be toned down a bit, and the sky looks a bit unrealistic with this too bright blue. Let's see other clips we have here. Selfie video, of course. If you're a vlogger, it should matter to you. The face is a bit too white for my taste, and this one is actually an AI highlight video, not your regular selfie clip. It keeps me in focus in a decent manner. Stabilization is fine, details are fine. The skin is a bit too white for my taste, but I would say it's decent vlogging aside from the white skin. It's Galaxy A-ish, that's the vibe I'm getting, a quality Samsung Galaxy A phone. Okay, and another clip, this one with extra colors. This is one of the best 4K videos I've taken with any Realme phone. It's a bit of a landmark, but as you can see, we're panning, we're not doing anything exciting, and there's a bit of shakiness here and there. Okay, and another clip here, the other stabilization test. This one you can definitely feel all the steps we're taking, but there's less of that weird tearing motion, jerky motion. Definitely not something to use in a vlogging scenario, so stabilization isn't impressive and feels like it's not the strong suit of the phone. We also did a focus test here on this acorn, alternating between it and the background. Fast focus and pretty accurate, not bad. Okay, and that concludes the daytime. I'm happy with the colors, even though things are a bit overblown at times. I'm also happy with the details in the 4K videos. Forget about Full HD and stick to expectations of a mid-range level from the selfie camera. We also have some low light clips. Let's see this one first. Things are a bit noisy and the light sources are kind of big. The sound is also echoey in most of these shots for some reason, and the zoom was a bit underwhelming. There are some reflections and shaky 4K clips. We have this other one here. It's a bit darker, it was in a darker area. If it weren't for the echo and some of the overblown lights, it would have been decent, but other than that, it's a bit forgettable, so nothing to write home about. We also have one where we tested stabilization, even though didn't expect much. So that's pretty much. It feels more like a mid-range affair in some of the aspects. As far as connectivity goes, there's 5G, there's Wi-Fi dual band, we have dual nano SIM card slots, Bluetooth 5.2, there's NFC, GPS, AGPS, GLONASS, BDS, USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom side, even an audio jack, and the calls were loud and clear. Since we did a speed test, let's see what came out of that experience. These are the results we achieved. When it comes to Wi-Fi, this is pretty impressive. This is definitely Wi-Fi 6 material. 723 megapixels in download, that's Wi-Fi, and 840 megapixels in upload. On 5G, we got as high as 609 megapixels in download and 101 megapixels in upload on the carrier Orange, which is quite fine in my book. On the connectivity department, we're done, and when it comes to the OS and UI, this is actually Android 12 with realme UI 3.0 on top. It's our very first contact with this interface. So let's get going. First of all, for security, we have this fingerprint scanner here, which I just used, and it serves another purpose. It can also take your pulse. You have to go here to the Realme lab. You have dual mode audio. You can connect a pair of headphones via Bluetooth and wire. You got DC dimming and heart rate measurements, which happens like this. Should be 15 seconds, but sometimes it happens faster. And at the end, you're advised to input the situation where you measured your pulse. Now, aside from that, the leftmost home screen is dedicated to the news. We're using gestures here, and you can see the recent windows. You can also do the whole split screen thing. We have a sidebar here, which is wider than before. It includes a bunch of options and a bunch of windows which will be floating and can be overlapped to the split screen ones. Swipe down and you're going to see the notifications and also the quick settings, which are quite useful and obviously include a dark mode. There's lots of customization here, so if you pinch the screen, you're going to see the wallpapers, but also the icons. Check out how many icon options we have here. You have icon sizes, icon formats. You can also customize their shape, rounded corners, foreground icon, app names, and so much more. Layout, transitions, and more are available. Realme is offering one of the most customizable interfaces on the market. We also have icon packs, and you can tweak the animation speed and have various other options which you can access from the settings. By the way, the settings area has changed from its predecessor. You can see here that the bubbles are more colorful and it's better centralized. This is the personalization area, where you can also tweak the always on display. This cute mascot is called Real Meow. It's the mascot of realme, and you can also apply these ones, and you can even turn your selfie into a silhouette, a sketch, and use it there. Otherwise, colors, font, fingerprint animation, edge lighting, you can customize a ton of things. You also have a permission manager and a dashboard. This is the privacy area and the privacy dashboard. You can see which apps have access to resources on your phone, which is nice to see. And aside from that, you have a kit space, digital well-being, and parental control. And when it comes to the applications, let's see. Before that, we have the special features here. Flexible windows, which allows you to multitask more efficiently. Quick launch, you can access the frequently used functions while unlocking the device. Basically, if you use the fingerprint scanner, you're going to drag up your finger towards a bunch of apps to start them. Smart sidebar, kit space, and simple mode. I was talking about apps before. We have quite a few here, as you can see. You can have them on the home screen and as well placed here in the app drawer. I see there's booking.com, there's a compass, there's Facebook, there's the game department, there's also Google Pay, there's LinkedIn for some reason, there's photos, and this very useful phone manager, possibly the most useful app of all, which handles the optimization of the device's system. Now, I mentioned games before. You go here and you have some options. These are the games that we got. We have the gaming data, you have the settings department, and the game toolkit is activated when you access a game. You have here auto resolution, 4D vibration, and more. So if I start this title, I'm going to have a sidebar, which I can trigger from here. And you can see here WhatsApp, Messenger, Discord, game focus, notifications, screen recording, touch optimization, system status, orientation lock, and more. All of these are meant to help you with your gaming experience and enhance it, block everything that will distract you, and help you do some game recording if you want that. Okay, so this pretty much concludes the review, and since we were in asphalt, let's play a bit of a game here. And as we play, I'm going to list the pros and cons for this handset we have here, the Realme 9 Pro Plus. Obviously, on the Pro side, it's got the good looks, particularly in the green version and the other one which changes color. Okay, let's play with this car. So as I said before, good looks, a pretty solid design, a bright screen, a powerful processor inside, solid battery life all around, fast charge, capable stereo speakers with good high notes, as well as fast connectivity, good bunch of pictures, especially the lighting and some of the colors. The street filters are also pretty cute, those urban ones which I tried out in some of the areas in the park. There's very fast focus and lots of details in the 4K clips. Realme UI 3.0 is one of the most customizable interfaces on the market. And we also have some welcome gaming options, plus the pulse sensor, which I haven't seen in a while on a mobile phone. Now, those were the pros. On the cons, I would mention that the speakers need more bass. We don't have a micro SD card slot. There's no IP certification here. And stabilization is, I would say, so-so. I expect it slightly better in this area, especially in 4K somehow. Zoom is underwhelming. We have a weak ultra-wide camera at times, especially when compared to the main camera, and especially in the night. The back side draws a lot of fingerprints and lint. It's pretty much a magnet for these things. And I would also have to say that it's impossible to clean it properly without being frustrated by the fact that it gathers so many fingerprints. Well, that's pretty much it as far as the Realme 9 Pro Plus is concerned. I had a blast playing with it. I was particularly impressed by the night mode, of course the battery life and the charging, which have been strong suits for Realmes for a while now. If you find this phone priced at around $400, maybe less, it's a bit of a best buy for battery life, for the screen, and obviously for gaming. People also enjoy the customizability of Realme UI 3.0 and the less compromises compared to the Realme 7 Pro and Realme 8 Pro. It's a solid Motorola H20 rival, solid Huawei Nova 9 rival, with less prowess in the selfie department. That's pretty much it from us, from gsn.com. Hope you enjoyed this review. We'll be back with more soon. Goodbye.